Welcome back to Boring Reviews.
Boring land.
Oh, just kidding.
Blasphemer! Hello,
right.
Boring Review Nation!
Kind of pointless.
We know all things.
All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here.
Gabe, the Night Watchman.
Gabe and I are here for another movie review this time. It seems like it's been a long time since we've checked out a Hindi film, Bollywood, but here we are with the film Toofaan. This is straight to Amazon Prime. It stars Farhan, Akhtar, Mrunal, Thankur, Paresh Rawal, and it's directed by Rakeysh, Omprakash, Mehra. And this is a boxing film, and I'm super excited to talk about this film because Gabe is a former professional boxer, so this is his world. I'm a huge boxing film fan, like Rocky and all that kind of stuff, so I'm excited to talk about it. And we're going to jump right into it. Gabe, where do you want to start with this film?
Oh, man. I'm on the fence about this film, to be honest with you, okay? And I'm on the fence about this film because it's the tonal shift in it is super different. So the first, like, no lie, first 5 minutes of the film, bro, I'm rolling my eyes because he's like Superman, all right? He goes in and takes out 4 dudes or 5 dudes in this bar. You know what I mean? He gets hit over the head with a bottle. You know what I mean? My man's leaking and he's still like, what is he, the Terminator? Like, look, you're a boxer is one thing. I'm not taking on 4 dudes. No fighter I know is taking on 4 dudes. Matter of fact, I've known fighters or read stories about fighters who get into fights outside of the ring. And, bro, especially if you're outnumbered, you know, strength of numbers, bro. It's that simple, all right? You're not Superman. You're a professional athlete. There's a difference. So I'm like, what am I watching? It's supposed to be a serious boxing film. But then it shifts, you know, after, you know, he meets the girl, you know, she patches him up, whatever. And we'll kind of give a synopsis of the story in a little bit. But then once he becomes I like it from the fact that, I just showed up to this boxing gym. And I think, you know, because strong or whatever, and I hit the bag a few times, I'm gonna go step in the ring. And the first time he stepped in the ring, he got his butt handed to him, cousin. And that happens. That does happen a lot. You watch these YouTube videos all the time of guys trying to walk in boxing gyms and they think they're tough or whatever. They're like, all right, put on the gloves, whatever, and get laid out, cousin. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between street fighting and boxing. And from that point on, the lessons he learned, the training, I can tell you right now, this guy actually took real boxing training lessons because his footwork was accurate. And they showed, when you watch the film, a lot of intricacies that you'll only know if you're a fighter. And if you have fought, the difference between throwing your shoulder into a punch, which the first time he wasn't doing, right? And then the second time after he learned, he was doing, okay? Twisting that foot, like almost they stepping on the bug, they call it, so that you can turn your whole hip into it, throw your leverage into that shot, like little things like that. So I'm sure he took his training seriously, and many of the things he did was very, very authentic. So I love that part of the film. And then really the boxing part, like, you don't understand. These guys aren't pros, okay? These guys are all amateurs. That's going through the amateur circuit. Bro, the amateur circuit is a grind. It's a beast, you know what I mean? You hear about cats that fight, you know, 100 amateur fights, you know what I mean? Whatever, 50, you know, 50 is like the bare minimum before you turn pro. If you're going the Olympic route like he's going, bro, it's a gauntlet to get there. You know what I'm saying, bro? It's not easy. And I like that they showed that, where even till the end, he won at the nationals or whatever, but that just means you get to now represent your country in the Olympics. You're still not a pro. So that's why he still was living in meager squalor. And you can see why the temptation was there to do what he did, because you know that, like, yo, guys, as an amateur, you're not really getting paid unless you got endorsements. And even then, you're not making big money. You're not supposed to be. But all that was authentic, bro. And I mean, even the seriousness of the film, when we're talking about the Hindi Muslim relationship, that was all beautiful. Why the first 10 minutes? For me, that really bothered me. But other than that, man, Nick, I'm so excited about this film. I want to get your thoughts on it, and I'm just going to give a quick non-spoiler. We're going to let you guys know when we're talking about spoilers, but I'm going to give you guys a quick non-spoiler rendition or review of the film, and then once we say spoilers, get out, because we're going to be definitely talking about spoilers.
So this is an interesting film. It's a tricky film. It was okay for me. There were certain parts that I really, really liked, There were certain parts that I didn't like, and I didn't even think about that opening part. It was definitely uneven, but you put it perfectly well. Like, why even have that there? You can show that he's a mobster, that he's a gangster, whatever you want to call it, without having to have that scene. It reminded me of Dungal for some reason, even though that was a one-on-one thing, the opening scene. This film, there's moments where I really, really felt it. I mean, the emotional parts, and it's really, really anchored by an amazing performance by Farhan Akhtar. This guy is very committed. When you say he looks like he has some actual training, doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, we just see the physicality of how ripped this guy is. You have guys that are buff. You have guys that are in great shape. You have guys that are ripped. And then you have guys that have like 32 abs like this guy has. I mean, it's a different level. And also the fact that obviously he put on some weight, which was kind of funny for me because even when he was fat, you can still see all the muscles underneath. Yep. So obviously he gained that weight like we knew he would just for the role, and then he lost it. But I mean, he was like, I wish I could be that good shape if I was at, when I'm fat or whatever. But I thought that was kind of funny. But he really, really brought it. I thought sometimes his acting when he was his older self, I felt like that was a little too on the nose, a little too over the top with how sullen he was compared to how much energy he had and how youthful and excited he was. I understand why they did that. I really liked the acting by Mrunal as well, who plays Ananya. I thought that was really good. I liked that, relationship between the two of them. But there was a lot of things about this film that just kind of like, it didn't get there for me. And one in particular, as being a huge Rocky fan.
Oh, no spoilers yet.
I won't give any spoilers, but let me say it in a non-spoiler way. They have training and they have fights, right? I mean, I don't think that's a huge spoiler because this is a boxing film. I was not a fan of how they went about the fights and went about the stories that were taking place in the fights, the timeline of the fights. I'll say it just like that. We'll get into more spoiler later on. That really took me out of it. So for me, it was just okay, but there was some parts that were really good. If you're sitting there and you're wondering like, hey, should I check this out? I got Amazon. Absolutely check it out. You might really, really like it. It's not a bad film, but I just felt like there was quite a few misses here and there. And again, that's because I'm coming off as a Rocky snob. And I'm not saying the Rocky films, besides the first one, are like Oscar films, but I just like the way they go about it with those tropes. But why don't you go ahead and give them a synopsis, and then we'll jump into some more spoiler talk. And I have a few questions for you, being a former boxer yourself.
So real quick, you've got this guy who's a hood. He's a thug, okay? And he grew up on the streets. He was recruited by this gangster who basically uses him as muscle. That's what he is. He's an extortionist, right? So he doesn't look at it that way because that's just what he knows. That's what he grew up. Survive. But the first time his eyes are open to the fact that he's a thug and that he's an extortionist is when he goes to the hospital to, like I mentioned earlier, get these wounds tended to from the brawl he had with like 15 dudes or whatever. You know what I mean? The guy was Superman or something like that. So he thinks he's tough, and someday he goes to this gym and there happens to be a guy working on boxing there. So he finds it interesting, sees the pads, he wants to start hitting the pads or whatnot, and he gets disrespectful towards the guy, and the guy like pops him back one really hard or whatever, and then afterward the guy steps out of the ring, because in boxing for the most part is love, it's respect. You know what I mean? You walk in that ring, and no matter what happens in that ring, once you walk out of that ring, you know what I mean? You thank your sparring partner for even getting in there with you. You know what I'm saying? It's an unwritten rule in boxing. Now, some fighters nowadays don't know, where you don't abuse a sparring partner because they're there to help you. And there's unfortunately some of these young boxers that do that, and you see video of it, and you're like, what are you doing, bro? Like, that pisses me off. But anyway, to make a long story short, he seriously gets into boxing. At the same time, he falls in love with this doctor who changes his mind about boxing, and he starts rising through the ranks of the local circuit, which is, city. Then later on, you win state, which it shows you win state, and he's moving on to try to get to the nationals because he wants to represent India in the Olympics. But he gets involved in a scandal because, like I mentioned, there isn't a lot of money in boxing, and you see the realization of even though you're this famous fighter around, if you don't got a support structure around you, you're eating, nothing. You know what I'm saying? You're living in squalor. You're living in means. There's not a lot of money to be made in the amateur ranks representing your country. So he makes a bad choice, takes some money to throw a fight. which is crazy, but that's actually
Spoiler.
happened as well.
Spoiler.
You know,
Spoiler.
well, I mean, and then he has to come back after a ban, a 5-year ban, to redeem himself, and he does so. Other things happen in between, but that's pretty much the synopsis of the film. From here on out, though, spoilers. And Nick, go ahead and ask me the question you wanted to ask me before you forget.
Okay, so I like how you started off already kind of answering, because I was going to ask you about how well did they show the aspects of boxing, more specifically training, because there was some sequences, and this is something that you don't get a lot of in traditional boxing films where they spend so much time on it, where they're talking about footwork. They're also talking about some of the training methods. I see that rope in a lot of boxing films. I'm not sure if that's really something that, you know, really helps or whatnot. Yeah. But just from the train, because he goes to the guy who's I can't remember what his name is, right? He goes to the guy who's like the boxing training legend. Right. And he shows him all different types of stuff. So my question was, without having to remember every specific thing, were those authentic training techniques that he was shown? And were you impressed by the level of authenticity, if it was authentic?
If anything, that was the most authentic part of this film. You know, you think you just step in the ring. Barry, you don't step in the ring. You probably, before you've ever stepped a foot in the ring and taken a part in an actual fight, you've probably thrown 1,000 punches, if not more. It's funny. He kept trying to, one of the things in the movie I like, he kept trying to step in the ring. And he's like, no, you're not ready yet. First, learn how to jab. Then, you know, hit the heavy bag. Then hit the speed bag. Then,
and he spent a long time with that jab.
I mean, it takes a long time to get to that point. Again, it's the preparation. So that's what I was most impressed with. Yeah, the rope, exactly, where you come up under, and that's just teaching you to roll as you come with your uppercut, because it has to be muscle memory, bro. You can't think when you're in the ring. Floyd Mayweather's, perhaps his best asset is that he can think clearly in the ring. There's this cool video with what's this guy's name? That fought Floyd Mayweather, one of the last champions to fight Floyd Mayweather before he retired from boxing. It wasn't I can't remember. It's bothering me right now. But he's talking about what it's like to fight Floyd Mayweather. And he's like, he's so cerebral in there, where most guys are like, he's like, you can't even touch him. And it's like, he's fainting you a lot of times, just and he comes in, you miss it. I'm gonna breathe. And he said, I've never seen this. You grab and you hear him breathing, and then he's looking up at the clock. And then you're throwing your shots, and he's just there looking at you. And you know, if you leave yourself open, he's gonna come quick and tag you. So it's such a thing where you cannot just step in the ring, because what happens is what you see. You just go off of instinct, and the fighter that had instinct and had the technique destroyed him, as opposed to the fighter that had no technique and was just brute strength. You know what I'm saying? That's the differences. So the training, if anything, is probably some of the most authentic training I've seen in this video. Even in movies that I love, like Rocky, like Creed, they really don't show you the grind of, bro, you're going to throw that jab 500 times before that jab's even respectable. You know what I'm saying? You're going to hit that over under 50 times, 100 times before, you know what I mean? Your body's trained to do that. So I love that part.
Yeah, it seemed authentic to me, and it seemed like they spent a lot of time on it. And usually when you see something in film or even, you know, TV, okay, they spent a lot of time in that area. So I was really curious if that was authentic. Again, my biggest complaint was there was probably, 7 or 8 different individual boxing fights in this movie. And they went through it so quickly.
Right.
We didn't really get to feel the tension and the suspense of how is that bout going to go. It was just, and a lot of times it was just the headline thing. I hate that way of telling that. I get it. It's already near a 3-hour movie anyways. I get it. You can't spend too much time on it. But if you're going to be a boxing, and this was very clear. This was about the story of the boxer, the Storm. This was not the story of the fights he was in. But for me, I want to know the story of the actual fights themselves. I think Cinderella Man did it best in that boxing film, one of my favorites, because they have 5. A Rocky film has 1 or 2 fights tops. Right. Cinderella Man has 4 or 5 fights, but they told the story. They told the issues that he had inside those fights very, very well. And there was 5 or 6 of them. My biggest problem with this film was just the fights. It was just quick and over and done with. And that's what me as a boxing film fan come to watch, was to see that. I had my training. That was great. But I wanted to see the stories being told in the ring.
And I agree with you. Not just the fact that they gave you more of a montage of the fights, so you really didn't enjoy too many of the fights, but what really bothered me was the cinematography of the fights. Because if you got this guy that puts in that kind of work, then really film it in a way so that the people can see he's throwing the shots and he's taking those shots. All right. Best, the best fight choreography as far as authentic boxing I've seen lately was in Creed 1. Okay, Creed 2 was pretty good, but Creed 1, where Adonis, who's Apollo Creed's son, played by Michael B. Jordan, he did the same thing. He took 6 months plus to get in the ring, learn how to box, and he was in there with real boxers. And guess what? Sometimes in fight choreography, let's go watch the video of him getting laid out, cousin. You know what I mean? Just out cold. And it looked so real because a lot of it was real. That was filmed beautifully. I don't understand why you taught this guy all this. He's put in the work. You can see he's got the technique. Maybe it was the fighters that the other fighters they put in there with him didn't have the actual technique to be able to go with him, which is why in Creed they use real fighters along with Adonis, because a real fighter will make you look like a real fighter and help you carry. Maybe these other guys, the other fighters I'm talking about, don't have the training technique, weren't real fighters. I didn't do any research on them that weren't able to carry that. But the way they shot it was so disappointing to me because you could tell this guy had the skills to look good in the ring and actually film it properly. So for me, that's one of the problems I had as well. So I agree with you.
Besides kind of clunky storyline early on, the fighting, my other main issue, because I did like a lot of things about this film, my other main issue was Aziz's feelings or lack of passion for boxing itself. It seemed like at first he was doing it because I sucked at that. I want to get better at this because I can maul these guys in the street, but I can't do it in the ring. And then it seemed like he had that relationship with his trainer and things were going great. But then when he had that scandal and he had that banishment, his wife comes to him after 5 years and says, "Hey, you're licensed now. This is great." And he's like, "I don't care about that." I mean, he's got his little business going on, but he doesn't look very happy. And for me, the way they got him into the ring, and I'm not even sure if I want to share that spoiler because it's a huge spoiler in the film. To me, I didn't like that. I wanted him to have that passion because tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong. You don't have the passion for the love of the sport of boxing. You're not going to be too successful. You're not going to have the motivation to keep going when you're hurt and you're battered up. And the fact that he never really seemed like he actually even cared about it really, really bothered me.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. Recently, Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and the Astros that were selected to go to the to the All-Star game all backed out, citing, they want to be with their families, take a break, heal their bodies, whatever. The reality is that they get booed whenever they go on the road because they've seen a major cheating scandal and they just didn't want to deal with that during All-Star week, okay? For an athlete to come back from a scandal of that magnitude, bro, I think that was what he was more afraid of than anything. It wasn't another man at the other side of the ring. You know what I'm saying? Because it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, we both walk in here. We're men. Best man's gonna win. Bottom line is you don't walk in the ring with any fear. If you do, hang them up, cousin. Hang them up before you even step in there. You're supposed to step in there. Butterflies is all right, but my dad always used to say, a man's a man. He's not a lion. Non leon. You know what I mean? He doesn't walk around with another man in his mouth like a lion would or whatever. Whatever he can do to you, you do to him. So it wasn't a fear or not I should say, it wasn't that he was disinterested in boxing or lost the passion, because you could tell he still loved it. I think it was the fear of walking back and to the embarrassment of, I embarrassed myself. I let everyone down. How do I? And he even mentions that to his wife, and his wife already knew, you're hiding from the world because of this scandal. And think about, being in that position where, and you kind of saw that, other athletes now mocking you, other announcers mocking people because of what you did. So I think that was his trepidation to get back into the ring.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. I don't know. It still kind of bothered me, but that's just my preference. But you explained it pretty well there. Things I liked about this, besides the acting performance of those two actors, their chemistry, Mrunal and Farhan, was great. Even when he had more energy, he was still kind of reserved and sullen a little bit. And her childlike nature was so endearing and so charismatic and so wonderful. And it was such a yin and yang type situation when they had a situation where I thought like they were going to end the relationship. I like to see how that went. And then they brought it in a little more real with the Hindu and the Muslim aspect of them not being able to find a home. And at first it was the Muslim community in that apartment complex, like either she gets married or she's out of here. And then you go to a different one, a Hindu situation, same thing. Change your name, so that you can be here. And it was really, really interesting. I'm not saying that I know how that is in real life, but I know how different groups will segregate themselves from other groups. So that was interesting. And it gives you a reason, a motivation for the scandal that he participated in, because he realized like we got to have a place and we might have to spend extra money to be in an area that doesn't care about the Muslim and the Hindu situation. And the last thing I really loved was the child actor that played the daughter. She was so fantastic. She was I can't find her name right now, but she did a great job, and she really added an element to bridging that relationship between the grandfather and Farhan in there. And I really, really like that. A lot of good things about this film. I'm telling you right now, the comment section, because there's a film called Sarpata that came out that people are absolutely loving, and that is a Tamil film, if I'm not mistaken. There's going to be a lot of people flooding the comment section that says Toofaan is trash, Toofaan is nothing, typical Bollywood garbage, all this kind of stuff. That's not true. This film has layers to it. There are some technical aspects I did not like. There were some storytelling aspects I did not like. There was some predictability about it I did not like. But don't just credit, like Gabe said, the work that Farhan put into it, the performances that we have, the story that it is telling on as the overall story, not the inner part, the box I didn't like. There's a lot about this film that should not be just discarded and thrown away, and makes it an enjoyable watch.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, even watching the film, there are times when I'm sitting there with Savannah and I'm like, yeah, I remember that. And I welled up at this part. And it was his relationship with his boy, for instance, Muna, right? He got him into all kinds of trouble. All right. But that really does happen. Other people in your circle will get you, you know what I mean, into situations, and they think they have your best your best interest at heart, but they really don't. Okay. And I like how they even gave him a nice story arc. One of the things I remember people talking about is, it's inauthentic because of the 5-year layoff. Guys, this is actually a mirror image of a little bit different, but Muhammad Ali's real life story, which is Muhammad Ali refused to go to the Vietnam War because of his religious beliefs, and Muhammad Ali was banned, right? Banned and shamed, even though he was just standing up for what he believed in and his religious rights. To go to Vietnam and fight, and he got banned for 4 years. And he came back, and after 4 years, he was able to go 12 rounds with Smoking Joe Frazier and one of the greatest fighters of that generation. So will you lose something taking that long of a layoff? Yes. But if you're a fighter at heart and you've got the skills or whatever, you can get that back. Another example I like to cite is Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins went to jail at 17, 18 years old or whatever, and did 10 years up top, cousin. Not a 7-year shot, not a 7-month shot. 10 years. Came out from prison, never having an amateur career, and was able to become the middleweight champion of the world. Beat Oscar De La Hoya for the belt. Big names. So it can happen. So I think is authentic. What was not authentic, once again, the beginning of the film, I hate that part. Why put it in there? And what was not, to me, the way they shot the fights or whatever. It could not the choreography, yeah, part of the choreography, but it's just the cinematography. The fights should have been shot a lot better. But from the training montage to the overarching story of a struggling fighter trying to represent his country and the temptations that come in because of that, it happens, man, in the game, unfortunately. And I did enjoy that aspect of the film. I agree with you. It's not trash. It's definitely worth a watch. And I think the last thing that I want to touch upon is people understanding. Right now, we're in the middle of the Olympics. Understand guys. Understand what it takes to get to that level. And whether you're the person representing your country wins or loses, just to get there is a victory. Okay, because you're going through a gauntlet of first you're going, in your own little region, then city, state, then you got to go nationals, Olympic trials. You're always fighting the best of the best or competing against the best of the best. And for the most part, you don't get paid. It's your family supporting you or whatever little odd job you might have, whatever you've been able to put away. It's a sacrifice to go represent your country. So when those athletes are out there, make sure that win or lose, medal or not, you guys appreciate the fact that of the work it took just to get there, because I guarantee you it was a lot. Bro, I didn't make it out. I didn't make it out of city. I didn't make it out of city, and I considered myself a pretty good. And I was like, yeah, you know what I mean. It is what it is, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's some of the greatest fighters went to the Olympics, did not medal. You know what I'm saying? Or didn't even make it to the Olympics because they lost somewhere along the way. So it's definitely a realistic depiction of what happens in the amateur circuit.
Dude, I didn't even make it out of my house. Okay, my wife and my kids beat me up all the time, so don't feel too bad. But yeah, man, I agree. I think we mostly agree on this film besides a few things. The question is, what do you guys think? Please, if you want to say it's trash, then say whatever you want. Comment, algorithm, that's all good. But if you've seen it, give us like some constructive things that you thought about it. What are your thoughts about it besides just bashing one industry because you're a fan of another industry? Let's have an open dialogue in the comment section. Let us know what your thoughts are. As far as a grade goes, I am going to give Toofaan, I'm going to give it a B minus. For a B, for me, that's still a fresh grade. That's still an above average grade. But there was just some elements I didn't like. But you got to give credit to the passion behind this project, the filmmaking abilities. The music was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed the music. Even some of the sappier, like love parts, I still liked those songs. I thought it added something to it. Maybe except for the first one where he's like dancing in the street. I didn't think that was really too consistent with his character. But I'm going to give it a B minus.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. This is a B minus film. It's not a C because a C is just an average film. Right. You know, if it was a C, I would have forgot about it. You know what I mean? Savannah would have fell asleep during it. You know what I mean? No, it has some authentic parts, some engaging parts. The love story was really good. That dynamic, the overarching story it was telling. I think that elevates it to a B minus. And again, is it an Oscar-worthy film? Not by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm including American films here, like Rocky, like Creed, like Fight Fan. Like I've seen pretty much every boxing movie you can think of. As far as the training goes, and as far as that montage of them slowing it down a little bit to let you know it's 4 weeks and he's still working on the jab. Yeah, that's how it goes. So that was so authentic. And I love the fact that they showed, like, listen, you just don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be a boxer and step in the ring. It don't work that way, cousin. So I thought that was very authentic. So for that alone, I'm giving it a B minus.
Yeah, the last thing I'm going to say is I compare my viewing experience of this movie to another boxing film, Southpaw. Super excited for that film. When I watched it, I just did not feel like it hit all the notes I wanted to hit. It had a lot of promise. And Jake Gyllenhaal did a great job in that film. He really did. So did Rachel McAdams. But it just kind of fell a little bit for me. You guys probably hear the kids screaming in the background. That's okay. Gabe's kids actually over here with my kid, and they're going crazy right now. But let us know what your thoughts are. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in to the entire video if you did. And until next time.
We know all things.